Welcome back to another episode of the Bryan Air Podcast. On today's show, the Farnborough Air Show, big orders for Airbus and Boeing.
We're going to dive into some local travel news as well as have a good discussion. Our story of the week is all about on-time performance.
Sounds good.
Looking forward to it.
Hey, pal.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Good in you.
Awesome, man.
What do you think of our new branding?
Loving it.
Cool,
Loving
huh?
it. It is awesome. The colors, the fonts, the whole way it's transformed. I'm
Looking
stoked.
good.
Very
I
happy
think
about
so. The reports from everyone seems to be pretty good.
it. Yeah.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, go and check it out. Obviously, big into the much-loved orange, pink, blue, and green. But and the updated logo. It's doing well.
Yeah, no, thrilled about it.
I can finally say we've now committed to this this color and this style of branding. Took a while.
Of course, yeah. Look, we had to, take some time to decide on which direction it was going. But I think, when we realized the type of equipment we're using and everything that's in the studio, it became clearer in the last couple of weeks.
You got to make the most of it.
Yeah, and to add on to the commitment, well, that's all there, pal.
It's all there, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Should we dive into it?
Yeah.
Quite a bit to chat about this week. Airlink, we spoke about them a lot last week. They're in the news a lot this week. They signed Nordic Aviation Capital, NAC. So 3 new E-Jets, 195s.
Yeah. So, again, quite obvious that they are big on the expansion. 3 new E-Jets arriving, and that's just to take up the slack on all the routes that they are jumping in on.
I see they're wet leasing in a 7-3 as well.
They are.
I saw that on CH Aviation. I couldn't read the full article because it's behind a paywall. I wasn't going to pay for that one, but
If I'm not mistaken, that 7-3 is helping them out on the daily Joburg-Livingston route
Okay.
at the moment. Yeah, and that's quite a popular route. I mean, connecting Vic Falls and Joburg.
well, Vic Falls now, when is that from? That's from the sometime in August. So
Yeah.
they're going to be flying there as well. That's also going to be in a 190, so good news there. And the expansion into Africa on the regional stuff continues. So great news for everyone that wants to go to explore some of the beautiful parts of the African continent.
Exactly.
Vic Falls is still a beautiful place, I believe.
I'll be honest, Vic Falls, one of my most favorite destinations in the
From a
world.
charter perspective,
Hey, man.
very, very difficult to beat.
Oh, yeah. I used to go there quite often when I was younger. When my mom was a hostie on DC3s. During the school holidays, I'd get the opportunity every now and again to go on a trip.
Yeah,
And Vic Falls, man, what a treat. Love that place.
very, very cool. So I'm
Yeah.
glad that they're going there. Does
Yeah.
offer that something different for the South African traveller to go and explore.
Yeah, look, again, capitalizing on the gap that Comair left behind, because I think that was one of Comair's more popular and lucrative routes as well.
There's a little bit of a vibe I'm picking up in the media. Roger Foster alluded to the fact that there's too much capacity in our domestic routes at the moment. And then you got Kirby Gordon on the other side mentioned again that they trying to take the opportunity of the void left by Comair. So there's definitely like two schools of thought with them at the moment. Something to keep an eye on. There's probably not enough about it at the moment. Very much stuff that's sort of almost taken out of context. But yeah,
I think there's two schools of thought there, because there was an article that came out just yesterday. In fact, it was in the City Press, headlined "The Dire Flight Shortage on the Joburg to Cape Town route." And I'm reading into that, like domestic travelers are sort of shocked at the moment with the lack of capacity available, particularly on the Joburg Cape Town route since Comair has left the market.
okay.
I think in instances, when you used to have a situation where like, I'm going to miss this flight, but don't worry, there should be another flight later on.
Yeah.
I can get a seat on that. Getting the vibe that that's not the case
Yeah.
so much right now. So, yeah, the capacity thing.
Yeah, the
I
capacity thing, I suppose, can only be answered by the people that are making the decisions on how much capacity do we need.
And on what routes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Far be it for us to dive into.
Yeah, look.
Yeah. Not our forte.
I'm not going to profess to be a pro on that topic, but
Keep an eye on it, though.
commentating nevertheless.
We'll chat about it a bit more.
And
If you're in Derbs and you're a aspiring base manager, Seme are looking for someone down there. They're expanding their base in Durban. A lot of tourism news again. Tourism playing such a role at the moment. A lot of talk about the fact that tourism is going to look after our GDP for the next minimum of 10 years. There's a huge push for South African tourism. And I was speaking this morning to another colleague to say, you know, a lot of at Aviadev last week, a couple of weeks ago, geez, time flies, but there's so much emphasis on local tourism and bringing people in. And I think there's this general understanding now about how important this tourism sector is actually going to be moving forward. So I know that the city of Cape Town, the whole Western Cape government, working a lot with even the carriers from overseas to see what they can do to help bring the carriers and people into the country. So good news, keep an eye on the tourism side. It's going to be,
of course,
going to be a big 10 years for South African tourism.
undoubtedly.
They're expecting a lot of growth.
No, of course. I mean, it's always been the biggest thing that South Africa's got going for it. Like I said last week, it's our biggest commodity at the moment.
Yep.
We have to look after that. And it's nice to see that there are people that are coming more with sort of solutions rather than moaning about all the problems we have.
Yeah, arriving with a solution.
Yeah.
We didn't prepare for this. I'm putting you on the spot, but I always ask you, how's the charter side going?
Look, it's booming.
Game farms.
Yeah, still. You know, this particular time of the year now, the winter season, particularly for the game farms and the game viewing, is the prime time. It's when animals can be more visibly seen. So, honestly, the charter market
looking good.
It's going well. Particularly the forecast till the end of August looks very good, and we couldn't be any happier about that.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
UK passengers. So I don't know if you have been watching. Obviously, a lot of talk about. You see this, what's happening at Heathrow and all that. We've spoken quite a bit about it on the podcast in the previous couple of weeks. So don't want to go too deep into it, but the numbers from the UK arriving at Cape Town, it's recovered to 98% of the pre-pandemic levels already. So looking really, really good. Now, some further good news on the visa side of things. The UK government's on the uk.gov website. It reports that they're now back to the standard 3 weeks application time it takes for you to get a visa to go overseas. It's really, really good news. One of the big things holding people back from traveling at the moment are the visa issues. So the short-staffed, all the rest. But the uk.gov, they say they back up to the normal 3-week period it takes to apply for the visa. And they're actually encouraging people to go for the longer-term visas. So you pay a bit more, but then, you can multiple entry. You can come and go as you please.
Makes perfect sense. And
e-visas are coming. It's just a matter of time. Very, very important for us. From a business perspective, even us at Samira, how important is this whole e-visa thing going to be? So to see stories like that, you hope the rest of the world follows suit and everyone gets on board with the visa issue again, because it is a major problem. You and I with Green Mambas, we ain't going nowhere without a visa. So, good news there.
No, exactly. I'm very excited at the prospect of e-visas. I think it's Turkey. I stand to be corrected on that. Turkey, yeah. They're changing their name. I think it's Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. I'm struggling to find that article now, but they've rolled out e-visas, and it's obviously making it a hell of a lot easier for travelers to get in and out of there. And like you said, just what we need.
Do you know what else is making it easier for the travelers? ACSA have a mobile app.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet.
You mean you haven't downloaded it?
No, well, I haven't had to because I haven't been traveling.
Yeah, you haven't traveled much.
No.
But yeah, they got an app now. Don't want to run it down because we haven't seen it. So yeah, it's available on Apple, Google, Huawei app stores. So it allows passengers to subscribe to specific flight news. So I suppose delays and stuff can come through there.
Okay.
And you can also pre-book your parking. I think you can prepay for your parking on the app and all sorts of things. So,
well, that's
far be it for us to run it down before trying it. Haven't tried it, but no, it's a step in the right direction.
That's quite innovative. I mean, the parking story is quite an issue. I had an
It's
instance.
a major issue.
I had to drop some family off at the airport about a month or two ago. They came out from the UK to visit. Dropped them off, went and saw them off, cheers and everything. And then on the way out, the parking ticket machine put a card in, and the machine just wouldn't accept the card.
Yep.
And that stupid little help button, boop, 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 and then you wait for someone to answer.
Yep.
And you wait and you wait and you wait. And then eventually when they do answer, they're of very little help. And it doesn't matter how many of those machines you go to. So yeah, that's actually quite exciting.
I think it's a nice thing to report on anyway.
Small
Move in the
little
right direction.
incremental gain.
An incremental gain, yeah, exactly. That's what it is. We shift to some international stuff. I picked up something nice from a training perspective. I had did you see, it was an Airbus A320 inbound to Paris. They narrowly escaped colliding with terrain short of the runway after an incorrect pressure setting given to the pilots went undetected. So a standard thing, we know about the dangers of that.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was serious. An A320, the radio altimeter reported a height of 6 feet above the ground, 0.8 miles from runway 27 right at Charles de Gaulle.
6 feet.
6 feet. So the controller gave the crew, so the altimeter pressure setting of 1011 rather than the valid figure of 1001. So for all those aspiring, pilots out there, those guys doing their comms and that, and you read about all the, the dangers, high to low, careful go, and all that stuff. This is exactly it, a real time, big danger. So the crew of the A320 was operated by Maltese company AirHub. They read back the incorrect figure of 1011 before being given a further decent instruction, again with the wrong pressure setting, and being cleared for an R&P approach onto 27 right. Keep a lookout for that.
Yeah.
It does happen. It's happened to me.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
That's frightening, man.
Yeah. But this one was 6 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet. That's and I say from a training perspective, because it's quite an easy thing to simulate actually in a training environment in the simulator. You can. It's a real life exercise. It's all about real life exercises at the moment. So we're actually going to try that in the coming weeks and see if it's picked up.
Look, it can happen. Obviously, we would expect that our procedures and our protocols will take care of that. And, with most airlines and operators, we try and build gates into our procedures so that you catch something if you've missed it earlier on.
Yeah. Interestingly enough for this one, what they said, where, that Swiss cheese model thing, another aircraft, I think before the 320, they heard the figure given to them by air traffic control, but they had received the figure obviously on ATIS or something like that. So they read back the correct figure, but they didn't correct the air traffic controller. And had they done that, then the air traffic controller might have picked up his mistake or her mistake.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that's
as I said, a cool one for training there.
So I'm going to try and use this as a segue into something else that's been coming out of the news from that part of the world. Is, do you think that is due to fatigue? Mm-hmm. Aviation staff, and I'm talking about pilots, cabin crew, ground staff, air traffic controllers, everyone being overworked at the moment.
Ryan, you open up a can of worms there. Well, last week, we sort of took two opposing sides. There's a lot of talk still this week amongst, you mentioned the article earlier, was it EASA? The EASA pilots are waiting for some sort of response from them, and from a fatigue perspective. Fatigue, a very dirty word in aviation. Yeah. You've got to be careful mentioning it, because ultimately if you say you fatigued, you shouldn't be operating. And the pilots in particular and cabin crew are saying that they are fatigued. We took two sort of different schools of thought, and I was inclined to actually lean a little bit your way, although I was playing devil's advocate. The pilots and cabin crew and everyone involved, obviously during the pandemic, would have done anything to get back in the air. My argument last week was to say, but hang on a sec, you have to draw a line in the sand at some point. You can't have it your way forever. You know, obviously there's salaries involved and things like that, and somehow salaries have a big effect on making you, good salaries have a great effect on making you less fatigued, don't they? But there's a lot of this going around, so the unions are using it as a bit of leverage to try and, you know, garner back a little bit of strength in terms of what the guys and girls are getting paid. And I think this is something that's going to go on for a long time. It's not going to be sorted out overnight.
Of course, it's going to be, you know, something that you see quite a lot of in the news articles coming out. I did take the stance of like almost saying, guys, you know, and girls, you know, stop whining. At least you've got jobs. And yeah, I got to be a bit careful with that statement because it is.
Yeah, I don't think you're actually taking that. So if you were in that seat, you would probably...
Yeah, I'd be right there saying...
You'd be right there with the pilot union saying, yeah, I am fatigued. You know, what I don't like, you get things like this. It says, you absolutely cannot address quality of life with money, says Casey Murray, a pilot at the president of Southwest Airline Pilots Association. You're never going to pay someone enough for a lost piano recital with their daughter or a lost baseball game.
And I agree with that. You there's no amount of money.
But then choose a different career.
Exactly.
Choose a different career because that just part and parcel comes with it. You are going to be away on weekends. You're going to miss your mate's wedding. It's been like that forever.
Yeah.
And it's just something that pilots live with. So to actually...
Well, that's exactly why I've also personally chosen not to run back to the flight deck right now. For that particular reason.
You've got a young family and obviously it played a role.
There's no amount of money that can replace the lost time with your kids.
Well, let's chat about Iran because
it's a different kind of currency for me, man.
A lot of people think that you're a bit crazy for not being in the flight deck. Some of your family members included. Ryan, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you flying?
Yeah, I get it.
And you have to have an answer to that question, and that answer is not so straightforward all the time. It's sometimes a bit difficult to answer, but part of it, and we're always told the lifestyle, you know, that we had was really good. And I question that sometimes. Well, was it?
Yeah.
Was it amazing? It probably is better in a more corporate environment, even though you might work harder in certain aspects. You're certainly a little bit more in control of your own destiny when it comes to going to your daughter's piano recital.
Exactly. I get asked that question all the time, and I've been almost shunned in a lot of ways. It's like, you know, you've got to get back into the flight deck because, you know, it's who you are and everything. Yeah, of course. I miss flying. I loved it. I really still love flying.
It, yeah.
No, that'll never ever go away. But there are things that are more important now, and you know, time is money. That was kind of a phrase I was going to use for a topic a little bit later on in the show, but that is what is important to me personally, and I think a lot of guys out there are feeling the same. So yeah, it's a bit of a...
I think where it does, maybe we need to paint the story a little bit clearer here. Prior to the whole pandemic, the American unions, pilot unions in particular, they were right in the middle of big negotiations for quite a big step up in pay. Then COVID happened and obviously everything changed. Now I think that the unions in the States are very aware that if they don't start pushing now, they will not, you know, get that momentum back to, you know.
So, in a nutshell, it's actually more of a arm wrestling match with the unions and the airlines than it is basically the individuals.
Yes,
in a way.
Yes,
so we know what that's about, and
but keep an eye on it.
Of course.
Are you going to Farnborough next week, or when is it? Soon.
If I could get a visa in time, I probably would.
You
know?
can.
Then I need leave, and I need enough money in rands to afford a holiday.
Well, the leave you can get, but the ZAR ain't going to convert to too much sterling at the moment.
No, not at all.
But I am jealous of the guys going to that event.
I think it's going to be
the first one since, I think Farnborough they have on the even years, and then Paris is the odd years.
That's correct, yeah. So this one is going to be from the 18th to the 22nd of July.
Sorry, you don't have enough time, bud.
Yeah, so I've missed that one. That starts on Monday. I think John Howell said he's going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can wrap that in there.
Simple flying guys are going. There's a lot of people going.
Yeah.
Air current.
Yeah, it's going to be epic. It would have been wonderful to go.
Yeah.
However, if you've got a few extra days to tack on some leave and maybe apply for a visa to the US, there's Oshkosh coming up at the end of the month as well. 25th to the 31st of July.
I would love to go. Never been, but I would really love to go.
I have some mates that are going. I think John Kearney's on his way there, maybe. And a few of my other good mates. So slightly jealous, maybe.
Well, speaking of Oshkosh, Duncan posted something yesterday on Fly Africa. If you want to follow something that looks rather cool, the guys from Sling. So 3 Sling Howing aircraft, they are going to be sort of blogging their journey all the way down to Oshkosh in their 3 aircraft. Looks very, very cool. And I'll leave the link in the show notes. Their route, Joburg, Luanda, Accra, Cape Verde, so going Barbados, Bahamas, off to Florida, and then to Oshkosh. Very, very cool. I think they were going to go last year. It all got sort of canned with the pandemic, and now it's going. So that'll be cool to watch.
Yeah, I saw that last night as well, and I'm definitely going to keep a close eye on that trip and follow the guys because, man, that must be an adventure of note.
I think we'll follow that as much as we can, chat about it as much as we can, and definitely leave that link in the show notes and watch that because the bug will bite. That aviation bug will, if you're not a full-time aviator or maybe you were thinking about going to go to your PPL, I think that will push you over the line.
Undoubtedly.
Well worth a look there.
I think these guys, they said they're due to leave this Friday. So, it's going to be an exciting series to watch if nothing else.
That's going to be good. But, Ryan, going back to Farnborough, obviously it's normally a time of the year when big announcements are made. There's a lot of fanfare. The deals aren't normally signed there, but certainly they announce there. So it's a big press event, and no doubt Airbus will be announcing their big orders that they've made recently. Boeing as well. They're there in the MAX 10 and the 777X. They'll be flying together.
That's right.
Look rather cool.
Yeah, no, it gives the manufacturers the chance to show off their gear and attract some firm orders. And I think it'll be quite interesting to see what actually comes out of this air show. The airlines are obviously now playing a very different game in terms of looking for what is going to offer the most efficient.
It's all about efficiency, hey?
Very much so.
Efficiency plays. I mean, even the way Boeing spoke about it, they said Boeing plans to unveil both the long-awaited 73 MAX and 777-9 at the Farnborough Air Show later this month. 2 aircraft will be flying together as part of the unveiling. Both aircraft bring an important improvement to aircraft efficiency, making each of them the most efficient in their classes. So efficiency. Something to keep an eye on.
Of course. And they boasting that they're going to be flying to the air show on a blend of sustainable aviation fuel.
Not going to be cheap, eh?
Not by any stretch of the imagination. But I've noticed that has become quite a hot topic in the trending news articles in the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that we can probably expand on a bit. So hopefully we can talk about sustainable aviation fuel in the next few upcoming episodes.
Boeing say as well that they will cut the airline industry's carbon footprint to 0 by 2050.
That's quite an undertaking.
What are we going to be on about episode 4,000 by then?
At least. I
think our carbon footprint inside the studio is going to be higher than Boeing's.
Not to mention, if NFTs are still a thing, then minting NFTs are going to be burning more carbon emissions.
No one listens to our financial advice anymore. Buy Bitcoin, buy NFTs. Not happening for you. But if you have got your visa and you are planning on going to Oshkosh, though, just have a bit of a squiz at the Heathrow website and make sure that your flight is still actually going there, because they are limiting the amount of daily passengers. 100,000 passengers allowed in there a day. So they've cut to 4,000 passengers. The only way to do that is to cut flights. The boss of Heathrow says that's all that they can deal with at the moment because of the short staff. That's what they can deal with. They've had to cut the flights, and that's that. So have a look. You may not be going into Heathrow. You might be going somewhere else.
Yeah, look, if you can reroute, it's probably the best way to do it. Go direct or via one of the other hubs. Funny enough, I saw Derek and Seko put out an article yesterday as well that Entebbe or Ethiopia.
Entebbe or Ethiopia, right?
Aren't they the same? Entebbe, I think it's Entebbe. That's they're actually dropping passenger taxes and airport charges to try and attract more flow through
the airport itself.
Create a bit of a hub.
Well, let's use that as a go. Well, I suppose no. We'll delay our story of the week. We want to talk about OTP. There's a couple of other things to talk about, and we want to talk about the things that are going to become topics in the coming weeks. The one being air cargo.
Yes.
E-commerce is now overtaken normal cargo in terms of payload capacity around the world. Changes the whole look of cargo around the world, because it all becomes about sort of the Amazon Prime situation, getting your goods delivered the very next day. There's even talk of Amazon putting a facility up in Cape Town to compete with Takealot, which is really good.
It's exciting.
It is, so that hopefully that Prime service will be available for overnight deliveries there. Yeah. Who will they then use as their air carrier? Will it become Amazon? They dropped the Prime name, Air Cargo, whatever it is, but will Amazon use their own setup to do that, or would they sort of jump on the, what's available at the moment? SAA not doing cargo.
No, South Africa doesn't really have much cargo going on locally at the moment.
But they will if there's Amazon are based. Yeah.
No, of course. And I think it's going that way. I mean, I've been paying a bit of attention to the cargo news the last couple of days, and I kind of find it very interesting. Mm-hmm. The sentiments. The CEO of Cargolux put a very interesting story out this week, talking about what their plans are in terms of fleet renewals and where they see it going. And he almost said that he's a little bit skeptic at the moment about what's going on, about signing new deals for new aircraft, because he's not quite sure where it's going. He's a little bit concerned that this cargo bubble might burst at some stage, as there's this recovery and more passenger aircraft have, combi capacity, et cetera, going for it.
Well, let me
interestingly enough,
from another angle come in. Is he not saying that because, like we just said, e-commerce plays such a big role? Look at Amazon. Amazon looking after a lot of their own e-commerce.
Exactly.
Look, they rely heavily on the DHLs and UPSs and that, but obviously that plays a big role. The bigger they expand, the less requirement there is for the big cargo carriers.
Well, yes and no. I mean, in this article, he was talking about the fact that you can't replace the 747. It's still the best cargo airplane, particularly the one that was originally designed as a freighter.
Okay.
There's just no better airplane for it. So there's always going to be the space. I mean, people have to have Formula One cars and giraffes and ostriches and your big cargo flown around. But it wasn't something that I thought we would dive into this week.
But nice to mention there's as part of the series.
Something that we can keep our eye on, that for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Just going back a little bit to some manufacturing news that I found quite interesting. The Airbus orders, massive orders. There are 259 orders in the first half of 2022 and a big wide-body recovery in there. I mean, 12 months ago, Airbus looking at 38 orders. So it's a massive, massive increase. Big order for Airbus is in China. You're going to see a lot of this going forward. I mean, massive orders in China. But China have their own final assembly plant there.
Yeah.
that only for Chinese carriers. So quite interestingly, it's the Chinese that are saying that they can actually get these aircraft onto the line it's at one hell of a speed. I mean, it's years ahead of what the schedule would be if it was in Europe.
Yeah.
So something quite cool to see. I think it's in one of the provinces there, but they reckon that they can get these aircraft in and out very, very quickly. So massive orders for Airbus. They're dominating the orders around the world. And
Funny enough, they dominating the low-cost carrier market in Europe as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's far more Airbuses flying for the low-cost carriers around Europe than there are Boeings. I think the figures are around 850 odd aircraft for the low-cost carriers, Boeing-wise, in Europe, and more than 900, closer to 1,000 of the type. So, again, let's see what happens in Farnborough next week.
Yeah, maybe some more announcements over there.
Yeah, particularly with the A220. Keep your eye on that area.
Yep.
Yeah.
Emirates and Air Canada, they're going to sign a code share by the looks of it. So no surprise there. Emirates just expanding.
Of course.
Good to see. And the last sort of international news stories here. Did you have a look at what happened at Indigo with the technicians and a few of their staff that all decided to call in sick on the same 2 days?
Was that really?
Yeah.
Was that a bit of a finger to management? Or?
Yeah, so a lot of their maintenance technicians went on sick leave on Saturday and Sunday and to protest against their salaries, Ryan. Indigo on Monday said it would rationalize the salaries of its aircraft maintenance technicians and remove anomalies caused by the pandemic. There was a similar thing that happened with their cabin crew a little bit earlier on in the year. So it's happening everywhere around the world. But I want to jump into our story of the week. We kind of spoke about it last week, and we've seen a lot about it in the news this week. And I'm hoping that because we spoke about it last week is why a lot of it's in the news this week. A lot of people sort of jumped on the bandwagon there and are talking about it. But OTP, on-time performance, run. It's not only pilots that watch this. So what the hell is OTP, and why is it such an important thing?
Well, yeah, I just found it fascinating because it really dawned on me last week how important this is. I mean, OTP, it's a globally measured standard that reflects on an airline's adherence to its own published schedules. Obviously, traditionally measured by the airports themselves, and rather the airlines to counter any potential bias and misreporting, OTP is a system where it's measured within 15 minutes of scheduled departure times. And that 15-minute window is to allow for air traffic congestion, obviously, which is beyond the airline's control and can be made up in flying time. Now, obviously, South Africa itself, OTP is trending up, and passengers are reaping the rewards of more reliable and prompt air travel.
Well, that's a factor there in itself. Yeah. The airlines that remain are very OTP conscious.
Yes. Yeah.
Start with the newest carrier, Lyft. They seem very, very, aware of it. Airlink, they're winning the race at the moment.
Well, let's go back a couple of years. When FlySafair entered the market, that was their, biggest...
It was their sales pitch, huh?
Yeah, they were bragging about it left, right, and center that they were the most on-time airline in South Africa. I mean, obviously, they could rub it in the noses of the government-run airlines at that stage because our OTPs at the SOE airlines
didn't exist.
Wasn't even a factor. Obviously, things over the last couple of years have changed, and you're seeing the likes of Airlink. It's becoming a serious sort of whipping stick in the domestic travel market here in South Africa between the airlines as to who now can actually produce the best on-time performance.
Yeah, and who can actually advertise that they're the best.
Exactly.
If Safair come in and their big whipping stick, as you say, is their OTP, but Airlink are tipping them at the moment 96.29%, which is quite remarkable. They can't then use that as an advertising ploy. No. So it's quite an interesting thing. Yeah. On top of that, the metric is highly valuable for the shareholders and the board to see how well the airline is doing, because it's in every segment. It's not just the fact that the airline departs on time. What makes it depart on time And then, more than that, if they do pick up, I mean, the slightly less than 4% of the flights that did depart late, why did they depart late, and can we fix it?
Exactly.
So there's a hell of a lot involved, and there's a hell of a lot of teamwork involved, and that's why this topic certainly interests us.
It brings me back to what I said a little bit earlier. Time is money.
Yeah.
And if you can brag about having the best on-time performance, it goes a long way. I mean, passengers want to be on time. So on-time performance is big. It means that you attract more travelers. Well, people are more confident to buy a ticket with the airline because they know, well, gee whiz, you guys have the best OTP. It's a major, major thing. And
but let's paint a little picture here. So you've got the website first where people have got to book. They've got to choose a time. They've got to choose an airport that they're going to depart from and go to. The airline itself, you've got the people at the check-in counters. You've got the airport, first of all, as well. The airport plays a major role.
Well, that's one of the biggest factors. And that's also why, sorry to interject here, but OTPs are...
It's not just the airline.
Not just the airline, but OTPs are statistically put out there on different airports because of the role that the airports actually play in OTP performance.
So airlines will actually possibly fly to a specific airport because that airport is very well known for good OTP.
Exactly.
Airlink, as an example, would they risk going to an airport where they know has a very, very poor OTP if they can't control the environment straight away? They'd probably try and control the environment before they actually decide to go there.
Well, that is...
Remember Sachs flying to Harare?
Yeah.
With one person working in Harare trying to... That wouldn't happen with Link.
And look, I think Link... Not to harp on about them too much, but I mean, Link have done it in the past. If they want to improve their customer experience and their own performance at a particular airport, they go and buy the airport. They did it with Mala, Palabora, a few of those little art stations out there where they can control Skukuza, all that happens there.
They're controlling that environment. Makes sense.
Semi, I know, for instance, here in Joburg, look, you can't buy Joburg. Would be nice if you could, but you can take control of your external third-party factors that you rely on. In fact, like the guys that drive the tugs or passenger buses. And I've heard via the grapevine that they're trying to do that, get their own tugs, own crew buses or passenger buses to get better control of that OTP.
So Vernon Bricknell was onto something with Nationwide.
Long time ago.
He bought some of those buses driving up and down the apron. Remember those skadonk things?
Yeah.
Weren't going to reach zero carbon emissions in those ones. But that's all about controlling the environment. And the interesting part for us, obviously, like I said, the teamwork involved. And to get the buy-in from each level of service. So you've got the check-in staff, you've got the security at the airport, you've got the boarding gate, you've got the service providers that possibly drive you to your plane, or, there's a hell of a lot going on. The cabin crew need to board and seat you, get your bags put away on time. Catering needs to arrive on time. The crew have to be trained in such a manner that it's time sensitive but still safe. There's a hell of a lot involved. And the airlines operating in South Africa now, I mean, let's just take Lyft, FlySafair, Semair, and Airlink. Man, we spoiled for choice with airlines that have a very, very good on-time performance record.
Absolutely. And, it basically boils down to the culture of the operation. It comes from the top down, but the ingrained culture has to be, well, guys, our core business is getting people from A to B on time. And, it doesn't just mean that the pilots are responsible for that. In fact, they probably...
The pilot's probably the least important because that's the very last thing off chocks is the last little piece of that puzzle.
So it's everyone, from the top to the guys who have the boots on the ground. They've got to have the OTP culture, and they've got to be conscious of what's going on and what they need to do in each specific role to get this right.
It's got to be a well-oiled machine.
It has to, from top to bottom. And that's what I find exciting, is it's a team sport. And obviously the competitors in our domestic airline market right now are aware of that. And almost want to like sort of, for lack of a better analogy, like it's a bit like watching Formula One at the moment.
Mhm.
You know, those teams have to be, you know, so well-oiled, meshed in their individual roles to get things, you know, going on time.
Ryan, I'll leave you with something here. Focus on the process and not the outcome.
Exactly.
Isn't that such an important thing? If you focus on the process, and that's what's so cool to see at these local airlines, there obviously is one very, very good process that's put into place. Everyone knows their role very well. And if they all do that, then the on-time performance will work. You can't go and say, well, we want to improve our on-time performance. Doesn't work that way. There's a hell of a lot involved. So, we want to say sort of well done to everyone flying at the moment. It's flipping awesome because the choice is there.
It's brilliant.
Fly Sapphire must be a very, very small amount behind Airlink at the moment. I've flown on Sapphire, I don't know how many times. My mom's flown on them. Oh, man, she must have flown 20, 30 times in the last couple of years, and not once has she ever been late with them. So they right up there.
Well, to put it into figures, I can give it to you this way. I pulled this off the interwebs yesterday. The 15-minute on-time performance year to date for Airlink at the moment, 96.19%. This is at OR Tambo.
Okay.
Just behind them, Fly Sapphire, 95.83%.
That's right there.
That's right there. Obviously, the figures for Comair are still in there, but that'll, you know, disappear over time. So, in third place, Semi at the moment, 80.47%. And, I mean, look, you know, it's really good. It's
if
brilliant.
You go back a few years to all the sort of real rinky-dink operators that were running around there with next to no on-time performance.
Well, look, I mean, let's throw it out there. The political agenda in the domestic airline market has been taken out.
Yeah. So solid, even playing field at the moment.
Gives the airlines a chance to run as businesses.
I think that's why they're thriving there.
Well, yeah. And that's what makes
it
little
exciting
corner of the planet at the moment such an exciting place to watch.
It makes our job on the podcast very easy too, because there's a lot of positive things to report about.
Of course.
And maybe can I throw an advisory at you?
You might as well.
It's about time, that time of the show. So, two of them for you today, Ryan.
That's quite cool.
Yeah. I've been researching things quite a lot, and I've been doing a few courses on podcasts lately. Not so much the production of the show, but to protect us from a liability point of view. I actually want to see what you're actually allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. And it's quite interesting in my research. You know, if there's a news article, and there's been a couple of them out lately, and if you do have an eagle ear, you will know that we actually haven't even touched those. They were quite big pieces of news that came out. We didn't touch them because they just felt dirty.
Yeah. If
we read an article and we endorse that article, it's the same as us actually writing that article.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was all about the sort of legalities involved. If we can't come here and just, broadcast some facts and figures and then say, well, off you go. We can have an opinion about it and say, this is what I think. But you'll be very careful of endorsing certain things that aren't true, because there's a lot of stuff that is absolute rubbish out there. We saw it last week with the whole Emirates story with the hole in the fuselage and the pilots should have returned back to Dubai.
Yeah.
All that rubbish. I mean, we know those pilots did absolutely nothing wrong and they continued, and it's safe days. But in my research, one of the things that came out, and it wasn't so much saying you can't do this, it was something to be aware of. And one of the industries that was mentioned was the travel and aviation industry. When you talk about mental things, giving mental advice on or psychological advice on a podcast, you got to be very careful, because there's a lot of people out there at the moment that are still suffering. Not everyone has found a job. Not everyone has gone back to their old profession. Not everyone is happy at the moment. And you've got to be quite careful to say, just get back on your feet, or do this or do that. We're in no position to actually do that, to say, just think this way or that way. However, what you can do is you can give people sort of tips on what has possibly helped you through a couple of dark days. Now, podcasts that was mentioned, we've given, podcasts have played a big role in the Bryan Air Advisory, because we listen to a good podcast and we say, right, go and listen to this.
Yeah.
And it was a couple of years ago, your favorite podcast, the High Performance with Damien and Jake.
Yes.
Their turning point was when they interviewed Johnny Wilkinson. So they were carrying along nicely, and then that Johnny Wilkinson podcast really pushed them through the barriers.
Yes.
And it took them to, now a real global force in the podcasting world. But Johnny Wilkinson is someone that has really battled with mental issues during his years of playing rugby. If you don't know who he is, you probably don't watch our show, because I'm sure it's but Johnny has just started his own podcast called I Am. It's been out for a while.
Yes.
And he speaks about these issues, that there may be one person, Ryan, that does listen to our show that maybe isn't, does need a bit of help. We maybe can't help, but what we can say is go and have a listen there, because there's some really interesting things where you might get directed, you might get pushed in the right direction. So yeah. I Am by Johnny Wilkinson podcast, well worth it. So awesome. I'll throw that one in there. I'll leave the link in the show notes. That's the first one. The second one is, last week we were very pro Airlink about our review, me in particular. I had a very good experience with them and very pro my experience on that flight. But it was like that for a reason. And it's about that concept that I've spoken to you about before, about associating with things that you are pro. So be pro stuff, not anti stuff.
Yes.
You don't have to be pro Airlink to be anti Safair or anti Semair or one or the other. If you pro a particular experience, then be pro that experience. It's got nothing to do with another experience that you may have had somewhere else.
Of course.
The thing that comes to mind is the whole Apple-Samsung thing. It's a little bit died off a bit now, but it was big back in the early days. Yeah. What phone do you have? An Apple. You must get an Android.
Or
you don't have to be
the Harley Davidson GS.
This is exactly
that whole
it.
saga. Yeah,
exactly.
I've seen that movie a couple of times.
You've seen it before, yeah. So you're riding motorcycles on the weekend together, but this oak's a bit of a loser because he's got a GS and you've got a Harley. You're both riding motorcycles. It's ultimately good for everyone.
Yeah.
Now, us in this industry at the moment, there truly needs to be some form of collaboration in that we need to promote people that are doing well.
Yes.
And that's what gives us such pleasure at the moment, that there's such a vast array of things to be positive about, and we're going to continue in that vein. But you'll notice we're staying away from the sort of negative stories that don't offer anything of value. And there's a reason for that. We're just not interested in talking about it. It's not good for us. We sit here and talk about it for an hour. You end up getting in a poor frame of mind. Yeah. What's the point? So you see something you pro, you like something, let's support it. That's the direction. So my Bryan Air Advisory this week is be pro stuff, don't be anti stuff.
I love that advisory, pal. It ties in with, everything that we've been about since the get-go of the podcast. It's always been stay positive and have something, better to focus on. So awesome advisory.
Do you like it?
I like it. Good. A lot. Yeah.
Well, it's been good this week, Ryan. A lot to talk about. There'll be a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. I think we've dropped a few hints at the direction that, there's a few little stories that we're quite keen to talk about. So if there's anyone listening that wants to add a bit of value there, that says, have a look here or there, please don't hesitate to contact us. Ryan and I are always keen to take on a bit of advice. And content coming our way, even if you think we might have heard the story before, please don't hesitate to send us that content, because you do miss stuff here and there. So it does help. And if you have got to this stage of the show, then please share it along with anyone that you think may enjoy the show. If you've listened this far, then you must enjoy it. So share it along. It will help.
Yeah, we certainly hope you have listened this far and you have enjoyed the show. Bryan and I thoroughly enjoy getting together every week to do this, and it's our biggest event every week.
Should we tell people a little bit of give people a picture of what it's like today, because it's a little bit different today. It's rather early in the morning, not too early, but
it's a little bit of a change up.
A little bit of a change up, and it's all about adapting and making it work, and hopefully no one noticed the fact that it was any different. Ryan and I also plan on, I'm going to drop this now because we're going to commit to it, Ryan. We're not getting rid of the live shows. The live shows we want to carry on with, but they are going to be in addition to the weekly aviation and travel roundup. So this aviation and travel roundup will carry on, but there are going to be some live shows with a couple of very, very cool guests that you might enjoy listening to. So they're likely to be a little bit later at night, 1 or 2 whiskeys, join us, have a bit of a chat, shoot the breeze. So we're looking forward to that as well. So they'll be coming in the coming weeks, and ESCOM permitting, we can commit to the time. But I'm looking forward to those as well. It's going to be quite fun.
Definitely. We have an exciting lineup of guests that, will be joining us, perhaps live or virtually, whatever the case may be. I'm looking very, very forward to it.
And that is that will be the part of the connecting with aviators. However, we also want to dive into a few other areas. Ryan and I are taking quite a keen interest in, obviously, as you know, the productivity side of things. We want to jump on that a little bit and see if we can help here and there. So we're not looking for, it's not going to be very aviation orientated, but there might be a few people that we can provide a bit of guidance and assistance to there, and chat about a few things that interest us. So that's coming in the weeks and months ahead.
Yeah, full pilot plan. Looking forward to it.
Until next week,
guys, it's been a joy, man.
Thanks, pal.
Take it easy.
Cheers.